Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with John. I'm your host, John. And listen, if you like the content and you like the podcast that we're doing, I invite you to like this on Facebook, to follow us on Facebook, and to go and subscribe to us on YouTube. Make sure that you are following us as we bring to you Huddle Up. As we talk Steelers football, we talk about everything Steelers. But listen, we got a great show tonight. And I'm excited about it because guess what, y'all? Yesterday, the Steelers have come to Latrobe. Yes, the Steelers reported to St. Vincent College at Latrobe for training camp. And this is a special one because this is the very first training camp with new head coach Mike McCarthy. We have ended the reign of Mike Tomlin for 19 years. He was the head coach again. Salute to him and congratulate him on his new gig with NBC. He's been doing it up to, I seen just last week, he was at the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame to celebrate Andrew Jones, who was going into the Hall of Fame from the Atlanta Braves, and he did some broadcasting there. He sounds really good. You know, Mike Tomlin, he he's going to make sure that he does whatever he needs to do to the best of his ability. And, even if it was something that it was a challenge for him, just like head coaching was, he didn't play professional football. He played college. He never went to the pros. But when he became a coach, he worked his butt off to be the best coach he could be for the Buccaneers and for the Minnesota Vikings and then for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They said that all he did was read and study things, and so leadership and things like that, which is why he was so good at it. But we believe he'll do a good job. He'll do a good job with NBC, and we're looking forward to him being on NBC on Sunday nights, traveling every Sunday to a stadium and giving his expertise on pro football. But nonetheless, we got a new head coach. We got Coach Mike McCarthy, and we already know that there's going to be some things that he's doing differently. We learned yesterday at his press conference, he said that he doesn't do live tackling, so there won't be no live tackling at this camp, which is okay. A lot of teams don't do live tackling, so we'll see how it works. He hasn't done it, so it hasn't really been a bad thing for him. It's been his practice for the last couple of years as a head coach, but he did say that there would be goal line, so there's going to be goal line action, so that'll involve some tackling, and if you will. He did say there's going to be 7-on-7 shots. He did say that there was going to be tackling drills, and what they plan to do is perfect their ability to tackle through the drills and things like that. So we'll see. So that's a major change because Tomlin, had live tackling, in an effort to be aggressive or, to be physical. But no longer that's the case. So another thing that Mike McCarthy changed, is that now the camps will start in the mornings. Those of us who go up to the camps, we were used to going up there, in the afternoons, like 1:30 to 3:30 was the practice. In the mid of the afternoon, it'd be hot as ever. I think that was strategic, to just kind of help the team get accustomed to the elements in training camp for what they would have to face, early in the season, especially with the heat. But McCarthy said, yesterday that he's one that he believes in getting up early in the morning and doing it. So, they're going to get up at 7:30 in the morning, have meetings. They're going to do a walkthrough in the gym. And then come 11 o'clock, they're going to practice, and then after they practice, they're going to do a walkthrough again. And then they're going to have meetings, and, they'd be done for lunch and dinner. So he's doing things a little differently. He's establishing his culture. This is his team now, so it's going to be his culture. So I'm excited about it, man. I'm really excited about what McCarthy has to offer. I'm excited about what McCarthy is going to do for this team, and I personally think that this team has the opportunity to compete. Now, those of y'all who know me know that I am a huge New York Knicks fan, and so when the Knicks won a championship this year, I was celebrating like I was, like I was a rock star. I was partying like a rock star. But I've been waiting all my life to see the Knicks win a championship. I've been a Knicks fan since I was a kid. But one of the things I wanted to highlight from that is that last year the New York Knicks had almost the same identical roster that they had this year that won a championship. But last year they had a coach who, and Tom Thibodeau, he did things differently. He did not believe in using his bench. He believed in grinding his starters to a T, to an all. And, he played them, man. I mean, he played them, mostly all, played them all game and barely gave them rest. And when they got to the playoffs, even though they was the best team in the East last year, and that's a fact, they was the best team in the East, but they didn't go far because injuries start piling up, in the second and third round, Eastern Conference Finals. By the time we got to Eastern Conference Finals, it was Jalen Brunson by himself. His starting team was hurt. They were tired, and his bench was ineffective because he hadn't been used all year. And so this year, they got rid of him right after this year. Even though they went to Eastern Conference Finals, they got rid of Tom Thibodeau and they hired Mike Brown. Mike Brown came in with a whole new system, a whole new mentality, a whole new culture, a whole new way of deploying his team. And when I tell you, man, he gave his bench a chance to work, and that bench performed in the playoffs. Those who watched the playoffs and followed them, especially when he got to the Eastern Conference Finals, man, that bench was on fire. Every what was the statistic? I think in every series, all 4 series that the Knicks played, I think most of the games, their starters didn't hardly play the fourth quarter because their bench was so good. Their bench was really, really good. And eventually won them a championship because when they got to play the Spurs, man, the Spurs, they started off hot, and had the Knicks down by 15, 20 points. But because the Knicks were so rested and because their bench was so good and able to give their starters rest, the Knicks was able to make runs in the back end of the game and come back and win. So I said all that to say, I'm sorry I went on a tangent about the Knicks. I love the Knicks, y'all, and I'm just so happy that they won the NBA Finals, and they're gonna try to repeat, even though LeBron went to Philadelphia. Who cares? Yeah, we coming for y'all. But anyway, I said that to say that I believe the same thing can happen to the Steelers. I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers talent is Super Bowl contending. I believe that. And I'm not saying that as a homer. I'm not saying that just because, I love the Steelers. I think that this team can compete for a Super Bowl. I think that one of the things that has held this team back was the philosophy of how they play football under the former coaching regime. That's my belief. I've studied it. I've looked it up, and watched film and watched games again to see how they play. I believe that one of the reasons that separated this team from being a 8, 9, 10 win team from a 12, 13, 14 win team and from a one and done playoff team to possibly, winning in the playoffs was the way they played the game. And that fell on the coaching staff. And now that the old coaching staff is gone, you hear players coming out in very subtle ways saying things that support that. Yes, yesterday we heard DK Metcalf. Go back, if y'all get a chance, go back and watch DK Metcalf's press conference yesterday. And he talked about how, the wide receivers, barely talked, last year. The offensive scheme was very limited in terms of what he could do and what Aaron could do. He said they had routes that they predetermined that the wide receivers would run, and that those are the only routes that they could run. And, of course that limits them. I mean, especially when you got somebody like DK Metcalf, $30 million wide receiver who can do everything. Why are you limiting what he's able to do? He should be able to run the whole route tree, and your offense should be able to take advantage of that. But it didn't, and some of those things like that. And then you see the defense, this defense has been the highest paid defense in the NFL for the last 5 years. And yet they have gradually gotten worse over the last 5 years under the leadership of the former defensive coordinator, Terrell Austin. And so, I just think that, not being able to stop the run, which was a staple of the Pittsburgh, Blitzburgh defense, from the the Super Bowl teams in the 2005 and 7 season, even till, the 10s under Dick LeBeau, a staple for this defense was stopping the run, getting after the quarterback, and that's something that we were not able to do on a consistent basis over the last 5 years, which led to playoff losses, led to, being, blown out, 40 points to CJ Stroud and the Texans in the playoffs at home. Man, that's crazy. 40 points to Jacksonville, 40 points to Cleveland. These bum teams are blowing you out in your place in the playoffs. And the defense, they just wasn't up to snuff, man. But anyway, I said that to say again, I believe that a new coaching staff can help this team get over the top. I believe that. I believe that this team has the talent on offense and defense now, especially with the stuff that they've done in this offseason, to improve both of those sides of the ball, to get over the top and win a Super Bowl. I believe in the AFC, the Steelers can get to the Super Bowl. And if they get to the Super Bowl, they could beat anybody. The real competition is going to come in that NFC. The NFC is loaded, but the AFC, not too much. I mean, you got some stalwarts still. Denver is improving. They get Bo Nix back. New England went to the Super Bowl last year. Buffalo will always be, there as long as they got Josh Allen. And even in our division, man, with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, they're there. But I believe that we can beat those guys. We've shown that we can beat them. And with a new coaching staff and a new philosophy on how to play football, I think that the Steelers can go to the Super Bowl. So here's what I want to do tonight. I want to look at this roster. There's 90 people on the roster, right? They got a 90-man roster going into training camp. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a early season cut down. And we're going to get to who's going to be on the 53-man roster come 3 weeks from now when they leave Latrobe and they got to cut down from 90 to 53, getting ready to start the season. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to choose who's going to be on the 53-man roster. All right, so let's start with quarterback. All right, so now to me, y'all, Aaron Rodgers is my all-time favorite quarterback in terms of arm talent. I personally believe that Aaron Rodgers is the best arm talent that the NFL has ever known. And Tom Brady agrees with me. Tom Brady said the same thing, that Aaron Rodgers has the best arm talent of any quarterback that ever played the game. That's my opinion. That's Tom Brady's opinion. You might have yours. You might say Marino. You might say Montana, people like that, Patrick Mahomes. So be it. But I believe Aaron Rodgers is that. But also, I believe that Aaron Rodgers still has that. He still has the arm talent. And a lot of people say, oh, but last year he was throwing the ball in the ground, in the dirt, da-da-da-da. Y'all need to understand, last year, again, the philosophy of how they played offense was not a good one. They started off the season with this two tight end offense that they wanted to run because they had acquired Jonnu Smith in a trade that sent Micah Fitzpatrick to Miami. They had Jonnu Smith, they had Pat Freiermuth, who they had just gave $10 million a year to, and they had Darnell Washington, they had Connor Hayward. So they figured that with these four tight ends, who all are gifted in ways, in their own way, we're going to run a two tight end offense. What that mean? That means that the formation that they run is one running back, two wide receivers, two tight ends, right? Got that? One is it's called 12 personnel, which means there's one running back. Which is 12 is because there's one running back, two tight ends, 12 personnel. So they would run that, and that would be the staple of their offense. So when it came to third downs and stuff like that, that's what they would put on the field. They would put one running back and two tight ends. So it'd be Gainwell, DK, Calvin Austin, the third wide receiver, and tight end. It would be a combination of Jonnu, Freiermuth, Washington, Connor Hayward, whoever they felt was the matchup at that time. Well, what happened was a lot in the beginning of the year, while the offense stalled a lot on third down, was because those tight ends just wasn't that good. That's the reality, y'all. Like that lineup, that starting lineup or that 12 personnel was just not as good as they thought they were. Because Jonnu Smith was older. He can't beat man coverage. Pat Freiermuth has never been a beater of man coverage. He's a very good zone coverage beater because he knows where to sit down and cover in zones and get open. But he's never going to beat man. He's never going to beat man. He's not athletic like that to beat man coverage. And so here's what the defense would do. The defense would double team DK Metcalf. They roll coverage to him, man up on Jonnu, man up on Pat Freiermuth, and maybe man up on Calvin Austin III or roll safety help his way, which they could do because they ain't got to worry about Freiermuth or Jonnu, underneath. And they would just play man. And they would never be open. That's why their third down percentage was so bad, because DK is not going to be able to get open on double teams. Calvin Austin III is not going to be able to get open. And Jonnu and Pat Freiermuth are not beating man coverage. So they were always covered on third down. So what does Aaron Rodgers have to do in order to prevent, sacks and prevent, going backwards? He just threw the ball away, man. He threw the ball away a lot. And their third down percentage was pretty bad because of the personnel that they employed on third down. Now that changed towards the end of the year because the Steelers went out and made some adjustments. They made adjustments to the offense, and they also got some personnel. They brought in Adam Thielen. They brought in Marquez Vandalus Scantling. I can't never pronounce that dude's name. They brought in some wide receivers, and that helped. They went from 12 personnel to was 11 personnel, which is one running back, one tight end, which is 3 wide receivers. So with the 3 wide receivers, now the offense opens up a little bit more and they can do more stuff because you can't just man up on DK and man up on tight ends who are slow and can't beat man coverage. Now you got to watch Adam Thielen, who is a great route runner, even though he's 36 years old, but he still is a great route runner. You got to watch Scantling, who has deep speed, who can take the coverage off take the lid off the coverage. Same thing with Calvin Austin III. And that start opening up the offense. And then you start seeing Aaron Rodgers become even more better and more efficient because his weapons were getting open. Now, can you imagine replacing Marquez Vandalus Scantling with Michael Pittman? Replacing Calvin Austin III with Jeremy Bernard, a great route runner and wide receiver out of Alabama. And the improvement of Roman Wilson, who's going to get a chance, to showcase his talent. And now you have threats at wide receiver where you can run 11 personnel, one running back, one tight end, 3 wide receivers, and that frees up Freiermuth to be in the zone. That frees up Darnell Washington to match up, in zones and get open in zone. They have the weapons, y'all, to make Aaron Rodgers a better quarterback than he was last year. And don't get me wrong, he was okay last year. He performed admirably with what they had last year and with that offensive coordinator that they had. Now you get his offensive coordinator who he started his career with, whose offense he knows like the back of his hand. You know what I'm saying? with Mike McCarthy, and he still has the arm talent. If they can protect him, if the Steelers can protect Aaron Rodgers, I'm telling y'all, hear me when I say it. Hear the prophetic words coming out of my mouth. Aaron Rodgers can have a MVP type season with McCarthy and his offense. If he stays healthy, if they protect him, he can do what he did 20 years ago. You heard it here first. And I believe Aaron Rodgers gives us the best chance to win a Super Bowl. So as we look at the quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to be number 1. Mason Rudolph definitely should be quarterback number 2 because of his experience. If God forbid something was to happen to Aaron Rodgers, the season would be over if the Steelers did what everybody in the media and fans are trying to say that they should do, which is keep Will Howard and Drew Aller, 2 young quarterbacks, as their backup to Aaron Rodgers. If the Steelers have to turn to Will Howard in this season, if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, you can forget about a Super Bowl, playoffs, or anything else. You can forget about it. And I don't believe that they would do that. There's no way the Steelers are going to just fold and allow themselves to throw in the towel pretty much by just having 2 young guys as the backup quarterback. That's why I believe they kept Mason. And yesterday, Mike McCarthy clearly said that we're going to start off with in the quarterback room where Aaron is going to take most of the snaps because he needs to get ready. And Mason Rudolph is going to be the quarterback 2. And then Will Howard and Drew Aller will compete for reps with the 3rd team. Now, here we build our 53-man roster. I believe that the final shakeup is going to be Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, and Drew Aller. Drew Aller stays on the roster because of his 3rd-round investment, and he's higher. He has a higher long-term upside. I don't buy the Will Howard hype, y'all. He was a 6th-round pick for a reason. And after watching his college tape, I don't see a quarterback who should be ahead of Mason Rudolph or Drew Aller. I'm sorry. And he's from Ohio State. And we know that Ohio State very rarely produces quarterbacks who have long-term success. And so I don't buy the Will Howard hype. I think, Ben Roethlisberger started that mess, because he had him on the show and then unfortunately, Mike McCarthy has to come in here and he ain't got no choice but to say nice things about him because, he's just getting annoying or whatever, and he ain't going to down nobody or whatever. But you can see when we start off with the training camp depth chart yesterday, the fact that he ain't in number 2 means that they ain't seen nothing in the offseason yet that would make them think that Will Howard should be the number 2 quarterback. And going forward, going forward as the team, gets down to the 53-man roster that I'm building, yeah, he's probably going to be cut and be put on the a practice squad. That's what my prediction for Will Howard. He'll be a practice squad quarterback, and I think if they cut him, nobody's going to pick him up. Again, he went 6th round. Nobody wanted him for 6 rounds except for the Steelers. There's a reason why. Just go watch his tape. You go watch his tape at Ohio State. That guy had arguably the best wide receiver to ever play college football playing for him in Jeremiah Smith, man. I mean, come on. Yeah, he was the benefit. That's like we talk about Kenny Pickett benefited from having Jordan Addison on his team, and before that he didn't do much. Same thing with Will Howard. He had, that kid Smith on his team, and that kid is great wide receiver. So, all right, so quarterbacks. Yeah, Aaron is the starter. I got Mason as my number 2 and Drew Aller as the 3rd quarterback, who, again, let me say this as well about him. I think that he has the potential to be the long-term franchise starter in this team, for this team. If that kid goes through Mike McCarthy's quarterback camp, or whatever it's called, quarterback school, if he goes to that quarterback school and really works on his craft, his footwork, his accuracy, his processing, his progressions, if he works on that and perfects that, and he sits there and learns from the greatest quarterback to play the game in terms of arm talent, Aaron Rodgers this year, I think Drew Aller could eventually be the franchise quarterback. Now people say, well, he was a 3rd round pick there. The only reason why he went in the 3rd round was because he got hurt his last year at Penn State. He got hurt early in the season. Hear me, y'all. This kid, the year before last, was on his way to being the number 1 pick in the draft. That's how good he was. And he didn't even have much talent to work with at Penn State his year before last when he had his great year. They didn't, you don't have anybody except for one person, a tight end, that went in front of the 5th round, like 5th round and up. Nobody on that offensive staff went between rounds 1 and 5 other than that one tight end who went to the Colts. And here, that boy was putting up numbers and performing in a way that he was going to be the number 1 pick. If he had not got hurt last year, early in the season, he was on his way to possibly being the number 1 pick in the draft. We got a steal in the 3rd round. And again, that was even with his messed up mechanics and all that stuff. So if he can fix that and let McCarthy develop him and help him to, take steps in terms of his mechanics, I truly believe that Drew Aller is going to be the Steelers quarterback of the future. So that's my take on running backs. All right, so let's move on next to running backs. The Steelers made a big free agent signing. They brought in Rico Dowdle from the Carolina Panthers. Rico has history with Mike McCarthy because McCarthy drafted him in Dallas. But I really like the 1-2 punch of Jaylen Warren and Rico Dowdle. They're perfect complements to each other because they both can play all 3 downs, which is something McCarthy said that he wanted to be able to, if I'm going to give a running back a blow, I want to give him a full blow, right? Because if Jaylen starts the game and, when I take him out, I don't want to put Rico in there and only have him playing 1st or 2nd down. And I got to bring Jaylen back in there because he can't do 3rd down. No, if Rico's in there, he can play all 3 downs for that whole drive without bringing other guys in or bringing Jaylen Warren back in. He can get that whole blow for that whole drive. And so that's a good thing. And I love how they complement each other because Warren has the strength and home run speed. That dude can break one. He hadn't had a chance to do a lot, but he has broken long runs in his career. Last year, he broke 2 of them against Detroit, 2 45-yarders, ironically, 45-yard runs. And against the Ravens, he broke like a 50 or 60-yard pass. He caught a pass in the flat and was gone down the sideline. So Jaylen Warren has home run speed for sure, and he's strong as a bull. That boy is strong, man. I mean, he has power. Speed to power ratio is great. Dowdle is the same way. He can wear you down as well, and he has that kind of speed as well. And he also can catch the ball. They both can. They both can catch the ball, and they both can pass block on 3rd down, which is important, or in shotgun. So I think they're going to be a perfect complement to each other. And then here's the back end of the running back room that a lot of people are, I guess, arguing, like how it should go down. Here's my take. The Steelers drafted Caleb Johnson last year in the 3rd round from Iowa. They drafted him because he was a home run hitter in college. That boy can run the ball. He ran the outside zone. Now I understand that they're changing it from outside zone, maybe the inside zone or something to that effect. I don't know how that's going to affect him. I don't know how that may, mess with his skill set or whatever. I don't know. But at any rate, people are down on him because of the big gaff that he had on special teams last year. And if you're going to be the third running back and not get that much playing time, you're going to have to play special teams. Well, hear me. He played special teams up until that gaff. Well, of course, with Mike Tomlin, once you do something stupid like that, you in his doghouse for the rest of the year. But that don't mean that he was not a special teams contributor. He just made a very dumb decision, which is he did not catch the ball. He let the ball go in the end zone, and the other team got it and got a touchdown. That was a very dumb mistake that he made. But that should not make you think that a third round draft pick has nothing to offer because of a mistake that he made. And because up until that point, they trusted him with the ball. They trusted him running the ball. They trusted him on special teams, kickoff returns, and things like that. So I believe that they're not going to give up on him. Unless they get blown away with a trade or something like that, and these other guys that they got who are running back, step up and surpass him in terms of what they show in training camp and in preseason. The Steelers, I don't believe the Steelers are going to get rid of Caleb Johnson, and he'll be right back there returning kicks with the wide receiver that they drafted, Witchin. Now, fourth running back, they got Travis Homer, who's a special teams guy, played for Dallas, played for McCarthy, but I don't think he's going to make the team. I think they're going to keep the 7th round pick Eli Heidenreich that they drafted out of Army. I think they'll keep him. He has talent, the run back kicks, but he also can play wide receiver too. So he's very versatile, and I think he adds more to the team than a Travis Homer would. Travis Homer is just a running back and who plays special teams. Heinrich can be a running back, can be wide receiver. He can return kicks and play special teams. And so I think they keep Heidenreich and let go of Travis Homer, maybe put Travis Homer on the practice squad. All right. So let's move on. Wide receivers. All right. Wide receivers, DK and Pittman to me form a solid 1-2 punch. Now, we already know DK can stretch the field, stretch the defense vertically. Pittman gives you solid route running, good hands for underneath stuff. DK can run the full route tree. And what I also love about Pittman is that he can run the full route tree, but as out of his own confession, when he played for the Colts, they did not use him in terms of running the full route tree. So one of the things that McCarthy told him was that, I want to get the full route tree out of you. I want to give you the opportunity to be able to do that. And so that's going to be something that should help him be more productive because he can do it. He just hasn't had the opportunity to do it. Now, the battle is going to be who's going to win the wide receiver 3 spot between Bernard, the rookie, and Roman Wilson, the third round pick 2 years ago. I think this is going to be a good training camp battle, and I'm rooting for whoever wins. Whoever wins is cool with me. I like both of these guys. I think both of them have something to offer. I like, I even like a 4 wide receiver. I even like, them running 4 wide receivers out there. Run 4 of them out there and let Aaron, go to work. But it's going to be fun to see. Especially those guys stay healthy, man. I think this wide receiver room is better than it has been in many years. It hasn't been as good since they ran Deontay Johnson and George Pickens out there. It's shaping up to be better than that all around. And then on the back end, you got the 2 special teams guys, Ben Skoranek. We already know he's a special teams demon, but he can get open too. He caught a couple touchdowns last year, so he can play wide receiver. Big dude, big target, who can get open. And then you got Caden Wetchen, the 4th round pick from Iowa that they drafted, who will primarily be their punt returner and kick returner. He was the best punt and kick returner in college football the last 2 years. And so we're looking forward to, seeing what he could do to that kick return team, because as we all know, our punt return team wasn't bad. We've had Calvin Austin, the third. He's been pretty good returning kicks the last couple of years. Before that, you had AB. But in terms of kick returns, we haven't had that. I don't know why Mike Tomlin would employ big old running backs to put them back there to return kicks. I just never understood that philosophy. But nonetheless, we got Caden Wetchen, and he should be solid. Hopefully, he'll be solid in terms of kick returns. All right, moving on. Tight ends. All right, so Steelers, hopefully this year, but the fact that we hired a tight ends coach to be our offensive coordinator, also, combining, Mike McCarthy's experience with tight ends, hopefully these two top tight ends that we got who are both making almost $10 million a year, they will find ways to feature their strengths and be contributors to this offense. I believe both of them, they're not gonna beat man, but they both have the ability to do well in zone and and be zone killers and help this offense. We already know Mount Washington is the total package. He's athletic enough to catch passes and run routes, but he's also a heck of a blocker. And so, we already know what he has to offer. I'm so glad that they signed him to a new contract to keep him around for the next couple of years. And then they drafted Riley Nowakowski from Indiana, and he's going to serve double duty. He'll be the fullback in this offense as well as the third tight end. Granted that the vet that they did sign, the vet Robert Tonyan, who used to play for Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. Granted that he doesn't surpass Nowakowski. Nowakowski should be the third tight end. If they do keep Tonyan, they'll still keep Nowakowski because he'll be the fullback, and Tonyan will be that third tight end. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I have them keeping those three tight ends. All right. So last but not least, on the offensive side of the ball, let's move on to the offensive line. All right. So offensive line right now, as it stands, well, we got some news. We got some news yesterday. So this may change a little bit, y'all. But my thoughts was that the starting lineup to start is going to be at left tackle Troy Fautanu, Mason McCormick at left guard, Zach Frazier at center, Spencer Anderson returns and plays right guard, Dylan Cook, who was the left tackle last year when all those guys got hurt, when Broderick Jones got hurt, and I forget the other dude's name that they had signed. Oh, Andres Pete, he had played left tackle. When they got hurt, Dylan Cook moved to left tackle, and he played pretty well. He played solid for the rest of the year for them, but he's moving to right tackle. I'm thinking that that's going to be the starting offensive line to start camp. Now, I have this as the starting lineup to start the season. But based off of what we heard about Broderick Jones yesterday, this could change because what we heard is that he's been cleared. Thank God. He had that fusion surgery in his neck. So thank God. I was praying for that guy, man. I love Broderick Jones. Young dude who's probably, to me, the most athletic and best offensive lineman that they got. He just got a raw deal, man. He came to the league, the number 14th pick. They traded up to get him. He was raw, though. He had only played maybe like 10, 11 games because of COVID at left tackle as an offensive lineman in college. And they immediately moved him to right. They didn't immediately move him, but they moved him to right tackle when Tomlin fell out with, what's the guy's name? Chuks Okorafor. They fell out with him and moved Broderick to right tackle. And it just like stunted his growth. He should have went into left tackle and from day one and been the left tackle forever. That should have been how they handled that, but they didn't. And that's one of the things I love about this new offensive line coach. He's putting linemen at the spots where they played before they were drafted in college, and where they're most comfortable. Fautanu was a left tackle in college. He's back there. Mason McCormick was a left guard in college. He's back there. Dylan Cook was a right tackle in college. He's back there. Spencer Anderson was a right guard in college. He's back there. And the guys that they drafted, the first round draft pick, Max Ahanachour, he's a right tackle. He's going to stay there. Jennings Dunker, another one. I need to add him on there. Jennings Dunker is another guard who will be on this roster. I forgot to put him on the list, but yeah, he'll be on this team. But and he probably won't start this year. He probably will start next year. But he's playing guard, which he played right tackle in college, but he's going to be moving to guard because he's probably better suited to play guard. So I like the fact that the offensive lines coach is putting these guys at the positions that they were playing when they were in college so that they can be more comfortable and they can be more effective. I believe, if McCormick, and Fautanu, and, if they going back to the original spot, they were okay, pretty good last year playing out of position. Now put them at their natural position, they may go to Pro Bowl level. So we'll see. But, again, we got to take in consideration Broderick Jones. So I don't know how that's going to shake out. Broderick Jones, McCarthy said he offers us position flexibility because he could play left hand, right tackle. If I'm the Steelers, man, forget Dylan Cook. I'm putting Broderick Jones at left tackle and I'm putting Troy Fautanu back at right tackle. I know I just said all this stuff about Fautanu playing left tackle in college or whatever, but if you got Broderick Jones healthy, He needs to be your left tackle, and Fautano needs to be your right tackle, and you have your bookends for the next 10 years. That needs to happen, man. I just believe that. I think that needs to happen. What we do with the first round pick, Max Hunachur, I don't know. Maybe you move him in the guard. Maybe move him in right. I know I'm talking about moving him around, but I'm just, you know, I'm just soft on Broderick Jones. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm soft on Broderick Jones. I just think he got a raw deal, man, and it really kind of messed up his career trajectory. But it'll shake out on its own. They'll figure out what to do. You know, Broderick Jones is in the last year of his contract, so it may be that they may just let Broderick go, you know, after this year, and Fautano, who's the left tackle, and Hanachura becomes the right tackle, and you save money there because you're not giving a big contract to, you know, somebody who's a free agent. So. And then also Mason McCormick too. That's another thing too. I never think about this, but they are playing Jennings Dunker at left guard right now. Mason McCormick is a free agent after this year as well. What do they do with him? You know, do they let him go, let him walk and go get a big old contract and plug Jennings Dunker in there? That's a possibility. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out, right? So that's the offensive line that I believe is going to make the team. All right, so let's move on to defense. All right, so defensive line. Really, this line is starting to get a little younger, and they're huge. All these guys are huge. That's one of the things that defensive coordinator Patrick Graham said, that he's never had guys who are this big on the defensive line. And so, of course, you know, it all starts with Cam Hayward, but Cam Hayward's 37 years old, and contrary to what the media says, because I mean everybody loves him, but you know, it ain't nobody in the media going to talk bad about him or tell the truth about him. But he didn't have a good year last year. I don't care that he made second team All Pro. He made second team All Pro because of his name. He didn't have a good year last year. He had 3.5 sacks, and he was still trying to come back from them both. He had 2 torn groin. He tore both of his groins the year before. He was trying to come back from that, and him and the rest of that D line was just horrible against the run in the first part of the year last year. The run game, the run defense was atrocious for the Steelers last year. They was getting run over bad, including him. You watch tape on Cam Hayward last year, he was getting run over. He was getting pushed back. I mean, it didn't look good. He didn't have a good year last year. I'm sorry. And I want to just, I hope that's attributed to the fact that he was coming back from those 2 torn groin injuries. Maybe he's healed. Maybe he gets his swagger back and becomes, you know, Cam of old at 37 years old, maybe. But they have a dilemma, because you have young bulls that you drafted who are being developed and are growing, and they are capable of doing, if not better, what Cam Hayward did last year in his 36 year, you know, of life. You got Keanu Benton who was being played out of position. Let's talk about that. He was being played at nose tackle, which it's been said by many people that he should not even be a nose tackle. He should be that outside defensive end that Cam plays. You listen to maybe the greatest nose tackle to ever play for the Steelers, Casey Hampton. Casey Hampton said that guy has no business playing nose tackle. That is not his strength. And when they put him at, you know, at defensive tackle and moving him away and on nickel, he performed. I mean, Keanu Benton had 5.5 sacks last year. That's more than what Cam had, you know, 2 more than what Cam had. So I just would hate to see that they lose him. He's a free agent after this year. I would hope that they would try to find a way to re-sign him. And if that means telling Cam after this year, hey man, you're 37 years old. Either if you want to come back, you got to come back with a limited amount of stats, because we're going to start the young boys, and we can't pay you $14-15 million a year. Not doing that. We're not giving $14-15 million a year to somebody who is not producing like the $14-15 million guy that he used to be. They got to have that hard conversation with him, especially if he shows up and does this year what he did last year. So I'm hoping that they have that conversation with him, and they keep Keanu Benton and play Keanu Benton with Derek Harmon. Those are 2 young guys. You drafted these 2 young guys, man. You got to let them to grow and develop. Don't draft them, develop them, and then let them go. That's what the Pirates do. We ain't the Pirates, you know. So anyway, they did sign a bona fide nose tackle in Sebastian Joseph Day from the Titans, who's played that position pretty well. He used to play for the Rams as well. Played next to Aaron Donald. So, you know, he got some good run stopping skills. They still got Yaya Black, who they drafted from Iowa last year. Yaya Black, who many are saying should be the nose tackle. Matter of fact, Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, says that he has the potential to be a great nose tackle. So we'll see. We'll see how they deploy the line this year. And then two guys on the back end, Otamawa and Logan Lee, two young dudes that Logan Lee they drafted. Otamawa they lucked up on, and he really produced last year down the stretch. He really helped out that D line when he was able to come in and give some of those guys blows and breaks. So looking forward to the defensive line getting back to dominance, man, and stopping the run and getting after the quarterback. Hopefully they improve on that. All right, so let's move on. Edge rusher, outside linebacker. This group ain't gonna change unless, God forbid, there's an injury that occurs. But it's gonna be interesting though to see how they split time between the top three with Watt, Highsmith, and Herbig, especially after giving Herbig that big contract where he got $100 million over 4 years, $25 million a year. Definitely deserved it though. Definitely deserve it. And he deserves to have more playing time because he had 7.5 sacks last year being the backup. Nick Herbig is that dude. He's that dude. He's the real deal. Strong against the run. Even though people said, "Oh, he ain't gonna hold up against the run because he's too small. He should be more of an off-ball linebacker." No, he held up against the run at that outside spot, setting the edge and things like that, and he got after the quarterback. So he definitely deserves more time. I don't think that some of these rumors out here, the people saying that they're gonna trade somebody this year, be it Watt or Highsmith, I don't think they're gonna do that. However, I would think that possibly after this year, you might see Watt or Highsmith go. If Watt don't produce this year and he's really on a steady decline, as we've seen these last couple of years, then you may see them, see what they can get for him. But if not, and he does perform, then you may see them try to get rid of Highsmith. Highsmith next year will be his last year on his contract. And so they may try to get something from him next year, especially if they can package him in a deal that will help them get a pick that might help them get a quarterback in the first round next year. So, tons of options there where you could trade from, your surplus. But then also, one of the reasons why they can even entertain the thought of trading is because they have a young boy that they drafted, Jack Sawyer, outside linebacker that they drafted from Ohio State, who came in last year and really, 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 as a rookie, did a wonderful job, man. Rushing the passer, making splash plays with picks, setting the edge, stopping the run. He really did good as a rookie, and we should not expect anything less than him getting better in his second year. So nothing changes with that outside linebacker position again, unless somebody gets hurt. Right. All right. So we got the outside linebackers. Now let's talk about inside linebackers. Right. Let's talk about the inside linebackers. This group, I think the only change that I would make from last year to this year is them cutting Malik Harrison, who has a high cap hit. And I think they keep Jamin Davis, who they just signed right during the spring. They signed him. He used to play for Kentucky. He used to play with Bud Dupree, but he also has played in Patrick Graham's defense, and he has position flexibility because he can play inside and he can play outside. So that's why you keep 4 outside rushers, because you got Jamin Davis, so you keep him. You can also plug him in as well if, God forbid, somebody was to get hurt. But you keep Queen, Wilson, Cole Holcomb, who I really like, man. I'm so happy that he was able to, recover from that freak injury that wasn't even his fault. People call him injury prone. No, he's not injury prone. That injury happened, wasn't his fault, man. He got leg whipped by a safety, but it tore him up for 2 years. But he's back. He's healthy. He's still with us, and he's a good depth player at inside linebacker because he can play the run, but he's also fast enough he can cover anybody out the backfield. So I really like Cole Holcomb. I'm glad he's on the team. But I think that, this has to be a rebound year for Patrick Queen and for Peyton Wilson. They need to rebound, especially against the run. They did not play well against the run last year. Out of place, out of their gaps, missing tackles, overrunning plays, underrunning plays. It wasn't good for either one of those guys. As a matter of fact, Peyton Wilson lost his starting job to Malik Harrison on first and second down because of his inability to play, stout against the run. So they really, really need to, improve their play this year against the run, or this team will find itself, doing a rinse and replace after this year, because Queen is this is the last year of his contract. If he wants to come back here next year, he's going to have to perform this year. If not, they'll be getting rid of him and be moving on, trying to find somebody else to play middle linebacker, which this team has just not found that dude since they lost that dude in number 50, Ryan Shazier. So we'll see. Hopefully in this new defense, which Queen speaks, very highly of, and he said he even got some help from Elandon Roberts, who used to play for us, but also played for the Raiders last year under Graham. He gave Queen some pointers and, some information on how to play in this defense. So hopefully that works. And hopefully this inside linebacker tandem gets better. All right. All right. So we almost done here. We got 3 more position groups to go to. Next is cornerback. All right, so the outside guys, they should allow the team to play press man and with how big and physical Porter and Jamal Dean are. Jamal Dean, free agent signing that they got from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, had a heck of a year last year. One of the top cover corners from last year, one of the best press man coverage corners. How big and physical he is. Him and Joey Porter manning that outside, with them 2 guys on the outside, they're gonna play a lot of press man coverage, and that's gonna be good because we in a division where we have to do that. When you playing against the Bengals and the Bengals got Chase and Higgins, you got to be able to press those guys and knock them off their routes. In Baltimore, with Flowers, I forget, did they sign Stephon Diggs? I forget who the other wide receiver is, but then, in Cleveland has improved their wide receiver unit. They drafted some really, really good dudes. Casey Concepcion that they got from Texas A&M, that's a big dude, and he's pretty good. They already had Jerry Jeudy. Cleveland, there's another dude that they drafted. I can't think of his name, but I was studying him. He was pretty good. Cleveland got 2 good wide receivers out that draft, but we got to be able to play press man. We got to be able to cover. We play some good teams this year who got good wide receivers. So I'm excited about these corners. We signed Asante Samuels back, who's him and they drafted Dalen Everett. Both of those guys will be first off the bench to play outside in the event that Porter or Dean go down or need a break. Samuel's an outside corner. Everett's an outside corner with nice size and speed. And then of course Jalen Ramsey probably will start at nickel. And if they move him back to safety for any reason, then we got Brandon Echols who can play nickel as well. So I like the cornerback group. I think it's solid. I'm looking forward to what they do. And then also, of course, throwing Ramsey in there as well. That should, solidify that starting 3 with Porter, Dean, and Ramsey, 3 big corners, who can play press man. So I'm looking forward to what they're gonna do. Now, moving on to safety. Now I struggled with keeping the rookie Robert Spears Jennings. They drafted him in the 7th round. That dude got blazing speed and he has good size. He's a good hitter. I mean, that dude is fast, like 4.3 speed, super fast. But I think that they keep Sebastian Castro. He's somebody that has experience on special teams. I think they'll keep him and try to get Spears Jennings on the practice squad unless he blows him away in the preseason and just, makes them forget about Castro. But here's what I'm excited about. The trio of Jalen Ramsey, Deshaun Elliott, and Jaquan Brisker, who they signed from the Chicago Bears. He's a Pittsburgh native, grew up in Pittsburgh. That's going to give Patrick Graham flexibility in his cover schemes, and on the line of scrimmage to wreak havoc on the line because those guys can blitz. Brisker is an excellent blitzer. So is Jalen Ramsey. We seen that last year. Ramsey was killing off that nickel blitz, had a couple sacks last year. So that's going to give him flexibility to do a lot of things coverage-wise with those 3 guys as safety. So I'm excited about that. All right, so last but not least, our specialists. And there's nothing eye shocking or, nothing that's, any different here. We have the best kicker in the NFL, and they rewarded him this offseason by giving him a contract that allowed him to be the to be paid as if he's the best kicker in the NFL, and Chris Boswell. It was good to get Cameron Johnson back. He was getting ready to have a very good year when they signed him from Houston like a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago. And then he had that terrible injury. Oh, he got hit bad too, tore his knee up. But he left. We had the guy from the left foot guy, Corliss Waitman. Yeah, we had him last year. And Johnston went to the Bills. I think he played for the Bills last year, but then Waitman this year went to go play for the 49ers, and they signed Johnston back to come back to beat our punter, who I thought last year him and Waitman was like toe-to-toe. I think that the reason why they cut Johnston and kept Waitman was because Johnston was still on that big contract. So it was probably, since they was neck and neck, why not just keep the cheaper option? But now he's back on just on a minimum deal. We have a quality punter in Cameron Johnson, so looking forward to him punting. And then Christian Kuntz is a mainstay at long snapper. He ain't going nowhere. He's a Pittsburgh native. He got his own podcast, so he will be that. All right, so that's the 53-man roster right there, y'all. That's 53 people. I think this roster again has the ability to compete for a Super Bowl. I really believe that, and so we'll see. They put it all together. They can put it all together. They can get on one accord with McCarthy's style of offense and Patrick Graham's style of defense. And one thing I like about both of them is that they believe in tailoring their scheme to the skill set of their players. I love that, because I mean that's just common sense to me. It just don't make no sense to have be so stubborn that you have a scheme that you think that you created, and you go and draft players who might not even be good fits for them, for the scheme, but you try to force them into playing something that doesn't fit them, and I think that's what we've seen over the last 8 or 9 years. You've seen philosophies of offense and defense and you had players that didn't mesh with it. That they were not good at it. And you were too stubborn to change your system to not appease, but to highlight the skill set of your players. We drafted a whole offensive staff. You drafted a quarterback, Kenny Pickett, a running back, Najee Harris, wide receivers, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool. You drafted all these guys. You drafted offensive linemen in the first and second rounds, and you never use them to their fullest capacity. And people, some people are not mature enough to handle it in a way that, most of us would, but, people's mad at George Pickens. Because he was snapping out everything. I don't blame him, man. He was mad because he realizes, he knows he's the best player on your team. He is the best offensive player that they had. And here he would get the ball thrown to him 2-3 times a game. That just doesn't make no sense. So anyway, I don't want to keep harping on the past, but I'm excited about McCarthy and Graham and their ability to tailor their scheme towards the skill set of their players. It's going to be interesting to see Graham deal with TJ Watt. It's going to be interesting to see if he can scheme TJ Watt out of this slump of not producing sacks and splash plays that he hasn't been able to do in the last couple of years on the type of level that made him the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Should be 3-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year. So we'll see. All right, y'all. Tell me what you think about the lineup. You agree? You disagree? Leave some comments. And make sure you leave some comments in the chat and let me know what you think. If somebody who you think that should not be on there, that I should put on there, let me know what you think. I think that the biggest complaint people are gonna have is the fact that Will Howard ain't on this team. But that's just my opinion. All right. So listen, again, camp starts today. I'll be up there a couple days, the next couple weekends, taking pictures, get some videos. I'll be posting on there. We getting ready to start our podcast again. So make sure y'all, stay tuned on Facebook and on YouTube. We get ready to start doing it on a regular basis. I'm going to attempt to come back again next week and give you an update after the first week of camp to, just kind of update you on what's going on, what we're hearing, what we're seeing. And then, we're going to keep going from there. We're going to keep going every week. We got a couple games coming up. They play Green Bay on the 13th. I'm looking forward to that. It's at home. And then they play the Jets the very next week. That's at home too. And so we'll definitely be talking about those games. So it's football season, y'all. Let's get back into it. Let's get back into the podcast. Come on, huddle up with me as we talk Steelers football. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.